What do you do?
Are you stupid? Do you not hear me? Do you not know what the words mean? You want me to look up the definition of every word that I said? Unfortunately, no. What part of no don't you know? I don't say that. That would tell me that I probably have put up with too much for too long, actually. Are you struggling with emotional exhaustion, reduced happiness, feeling bad or unhealthy? It could be that you're always giving more than you get. Maybe your partner expects you to read their mind, or your boss emails you after hours and wants an immediate response. At times like these, we need clear boundaries. In this video, we'll be giving you 3 proven ways to set clear boundaries without escalating conflict and leaving you feeling good about your choices. You'll learn how to protect your time, energy in both your romantic life and your career. And ultimately, you'll have more energy and satisfaction, hopefully. We're 2 licensed therapists sharing the skills and tools we use with clients. Welcome and have a seat on the couch. Hello, Janine. How are you doing today?
Good, Courtney. That sounds fun. I like talking about boundaries.
Yeah, they're everywhere. They're out there when we drive, curbs, so
Real
they're all
boundaries
over the
like
place.
that. Yeah. But when you said it initially and you said they're everywhere, I go, are they? Do we have good boundaries with each other in relationships, at our jobs, in our personal lives? Do we really?
Well, I think you know what part of it is there's kind of a passive agreement that when you start a relationship or you're in a relationship is
Mhm.
that you're going to give to the other person. And the way you give is by your time, energy, thoughts, things like that. So
Uh,
it's part of the dynamic of a relationship or you're not relating. But
uh,
I think sometimes we continue that or continue to expand it and we get in trouble. We end up not having any boundaries around our time or money or emotional state. Like some people, I don't know, when people find out that you're a therapist, do they ever just want to talk to you a lot? Like, oh, you'll understand this. You're a therapist. I bet you have boundaries
Sometimes
around that.
they either think you're a weirdo or
Yeah.
they
Or they,
won't
or
talk
they,
to
or
you.
they think you can read their mind.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that. And so, yeah, you definitely make your boundaries around your time, your energy, your efforts, your money, and you
Hmm.
figure that stuff out. But sometimes we say like we don't have boundaries or we do, but we all have boundaries, right?
Yep.
Sometimes we just don't know what they are and we don't know how to assert them. We don't know how to maintain them. That's what I have found actually is more than that is that we know how to make a boundary.
Right.
I'm not going to do that.
Right.
But then we don't maintain it. And I think that's the issue is like, how do we maintain the boundary? What kind of boundaries are there? And what is the appropriate language for boundaries? Is it about getting other people to do things? Because that's more of a request. And is a boundary just about what you will or won't do? I think that's what it's about. And if we do that, all of a sudden there's this magic that happens where we can maintain a boundary. Now, some people just don't maintain it because they kind of give in and they don't understand their own self-worth. So that's a part of it. But I think a lot of it has to do with what we think a boundary is. I know I thought a boundary was telling my husband that he couldn't yell at me anymore. You can't yell at me. That's my boundary. And then I couldn't figure out why I couldn't maintain it because I can't control him. What am I going to do? Put my hand over his mouth? So I had to figure out the language of boundaries. And it was about, hey, if you continue to yell, if you continue to raise your voice, need to walk away and I will. Now all of a sudden, I have ownership and power over that boundary. So for me, boundaries have been huge in learning the language of them.
Yeah, I think even as therapists, we have clients who, from time to time, let's say, test our boundaries. Having boundaries around just explaining, like, when I'm going to get back to you. I mean, I'm sure other people in other jobs, have to encounter that. It's like, well, we talk about work-life balance and all the rest of the pieces of balancing career and family responsibilities and personal time. Sometimes you say, well, after this time, I'm not available. I mean, I think we do that, right? And I'll get back to you as soon as I can by the next business day or whatever your rule is. And I'm going to
Hmm.
set my work boundary around that.
Absolutely. That's a perfect boundary. You let them be them and do them, right?
Now, if we had diffuse boundaries or unclear boundaries, right?
Hmm.
wh- what my wife actually might hear from me is, I can't believe that client messaged me again. So do they know it's 8 o'clock at night? I don't work till 8. That's absurd. Right. And what my wife should say to me is, hey, just because they made a message for you doesn't mean you have to pay attention to it or get back to them right now. You have
Hmm.
diffuse boundaries, husband, right? Because you're letting everybody else impede on so as much as we set them for other people, we have to set them to protect ourselves, right? And like you said, follow through on them, right? So I got to be able to let that go and not have a diffuse boundary.
Right, you have to maintain the boundary. You have to follow through with what you say you're going to do. So when you're making a boundary, that's a key for you to say, "Hey, if I need to be able to maintain this, then, I have to make sure that I make a boundary that I can control, because I can't control other people's behavior. I can't control what they do or what they don't do. I can only control what I do. And so the boundary has to be around what I will and won't tolerate."
Okay. So let's say the example of maybe a too rigid of a boundary or maybe a rigid boundary, right?
Mhm,
Because oftentimes people, they get walked over and walked over and walked over, right? They're just like, nobody honors my boundaries. They're just doing what I asked them
mhm,
not to, which is, as we now know, that's not a boundary, right?
mhm.
We teach people how to treat us, right? And what we permit, we teach.
Yeah,
So a rigid boundary is often the result of having too much of a diffuse boundary.
mhm.
And then we're like, well, I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to respond. I don't care what they do. I'm not going to do it.
0 to 100. We go to 0 to 100.
Yeah, that's I go from completely diffuse, like, oh my gosh, those clients, I can't believe they messaged me, to I don't care what they message me. I'm not even going to look at it. We need to have a little bit healthier. A rigid boundary, like, is a castle wall that maybe has a drawbridge, right? That
Yeah,
we so we can have a so that would be turning it into a healthy boundary. A rigid boundary is ain't nobody know how getting through this boundary. No
right.
one's going to impede on my Saturday ever.
Mhm. That would be a
That
too rigid of a boundary, right? Because at some point, you're gonna have a family need or a crisis, or you're gonna have something, and so having too rigid of boundaries keeps you
mhm.
totally disconnected from the people that you wanna be connected to. And so but it makes sense though in some ways, like, it's not something that I'm on a judge because I think I did that. I think I had such diffuse boundaries, I didn't have boundaries at all, felt bitter and resentful when people were doing things because I didn't have any awareness of it, and when I learned awareness of it and I created boundaries, of course I went too rigid, and I started feeling like a jerk, right? Because I was making these boundaries, so I think that's part of the process. If I were to say teach boundaries, which I do, I'll say often, like, you're going to feel like a jerk sometimes when you're making those boundaries for the first time. And that's okay as long as you're walking in your integrity. All of us want to say yes, right? Like, because we're supposed to serve people and love people and we're supposed to help people and all these things that we're taught. And then we're giving ourselves away to everybody and we just dilute our own energy and efforts and time and we get cranky and grumpy, and it's not good for anybody. It's okay to have some discomfort around it. You know, if your boss calls at 6 o'clock and you answer the phone and you immediately start doing all that work that, he wants to put you on, you feel conflicted because you want to get the promotion down the road. You want to make sure that you're indispensable at work. All those things are important. But man, sometimes we have to say no because you need to be able to refresh yourself. You need to be able to have a work-life balance, be able to give time and energy to your partner, to your kids, to your friends.
So what you just described would be a diffuse boundary, and a rigid boundary would be I never check my email after 5 o'clock. I want to get into a little bit of the emotional boundaries too, because I think
Mhm.
that's where we run into a lot of our struggles in setting our boundaries. Is we then say we set a time or place boundary, but then somebody, well, now I have to, right? Oh no, if you do that, then I'm gonna. And it's like, okay, like, can we handle the emotional side?
So, looking at language and adult behavior of I will, I won't, and making the boundaries and then maintaining them, what you will and won't tolerate. There's some actionable skills that we can talk about in terms of making sure that you can maintain your boundaries. The first one is going to be a strategic pause. The strategic pause is your first line of defense. It's important to be able to stop and breathe and pay attention to yourself. You can have something in your pocket. I say in my pocket because I like to have some kind of script that makes me feel comfortable. When a request is made of me, I might say something like, "Let me think about that and get back to you." Or I might say, if I have to answer that right now, it's going to be a no, but if you give me a little bit of time, I'll think about it." Do you have a script in mind that feels comfortable to say to people?
Yes, because I'm like you. I'm a yes man. I'm like, sure, I could do it. I can help. I can do whatever. Because a lot of stuff is digital or texting or messaging of some sort. So I always start with unfortunately, comma. right? And I actually say that to my clients, unfortunately, comma, right?
Mhm.
And then because that'll set your limit. Unfortunately, I'm unable able to do that. I can't take on other things, or I don't work on Saturdays. I get that one a lot.
Mhm.
However, I add a positive thing at the end, right? I learned that somewhere along the line. So I start with the difficult part. I say, unfortunately, I'm not able to do that. I don't work on Saturdays, but
Mhm.
I'm glad you're wanting to meet again so soon.
Mhm.
And hopefully we can set up a time really Monday to Friday where we can talk about those things you want to talk about.
Mhm.
Mine's really, I want to say minuscule. It's just
Mhm.
like that. Unfortunately, I'm unable to. Right. Because then it leads as a little bit of the emotion part too. Like it's not like, yeah, you know what, buzz off. You know what? I'm not doing it, which is what would be a rigid boundary.
Right, it would be rigid, and sometimes we just don't know the language because we're always saying yes, right? We immediately say yes to everything. So how do we even know how to say no? And no can be a complete sentence, and that's okay, but when we're talking to our boss or when we're talking to our partner, we wanna be able to show up in a way that is empathetic, compassionate, but also boundaried.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's important to have something that you can say that kind of softens the blow a little bit when it feels like a blow. So yeah, unfortunately, or man, thank you so much for asking about that. However, right? So
Yeah.
it's just the language, whatever works for you is going to help to say the thing that needs to be said.
Whatever your methodology is, getting that period of time where you can have a strategic pause. If that's waiting to text back, not replying to the email, right away. If you're voice to voice, you got to say, give me a second, or let me think about it. Can I get back to you in a little bit about that? Or by some certain time specifically. And then you can kind of check yourself because that's going to be our guiding principle of all of these boundaries, setting or not,
Mhm.
is how do I feel about it? How do I really think in the context of all the other things in my life? What do I really think and feel about it? Getting that pause somehow.
Well, and it very much connects to the first step of resolving conflict. So, not boundary making shouldn't always be a conflict, but sometimes it's going to turn into one. So, the first step is always to pause and breathe. It's always to
Mhm.
take a step back and think about what you need, what you want, and then be able to approach it more reasonably rather than becoming escalated or elevated emotionally. So, Courtney, if you say, however, or unfortunately, and someone continues to challenge your boundary, what do you do?
Say, are you stupid? Do you not hear me? Do you not know what the words mean? You want me to look up the definition of every word that I said? Unfortunately, no. What part of no don't you know? I don't say that. That would tell me that I probably have put up with too much for too long, actually. So I think it's just finding different ways to reiterate it, right? That broken record technique. Because in that first example, we didn't really talk about how that impacted or landed with the other person. So, yeah, if somebody really cares about something and they're going to be asking, they're going to keep asking, right? They're going to be really, really persistent in what they're doing, like a broken record. Matter of fact, I don't even know that it communicates anymore because, well, maybe I guess vinyl has made a comeback. I'm thinking about the younger generation not having vinyl or records,
Mhm.
but it should communicate. But so a broken record is when someone's trying to wear you down with possibly guilt. Oh, this sounds like mom stuff, right? It's like, oh, well, then I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to survive, right? Like someone, say in a romantic setting, they say, I just can't believe you did that. That really hurt my feelings. And so, I could say, well, I understand you're hurt, and I've apologized, but so I'm a little confused about why this topic keeps coming up for you. If I can help you feel better about this, let me know if there's something else you'd like.
Mhm.
But other than that, I feel like we've exhausted everything to talk about in this. How else could it happen? That I might have to resist again.
I think it's important here, though, to just pause for a second because we teach people how to treat us, and when we've allowed them to walk over our boundaries over and over and over again, when we finally stand up and make a firmer boundary, we make a more healthy boundary, they don't know it. We know it because we've made it, we've built it, we can see it, but they can't. And so they're going to push up against it because normally they can break it down and they know it, right?
Mhm,
Maybe it's the third or fourth or fifth time, but they know how to break our walls down, our boundaries down. And
mhm,
so when it's a kid, we call it an extinction burst, right? They're gonna have a temper tantrum, and adults do the same thing. If you have a boundary all of a sudden and you're maintaining it, they don't understand it. Not until they get a feel for, "Oh, okay, they actually mean it this time. I can't break that boundary down and get my way." But until they realize it, they're going to have that extinction burst, I think, right? Where they throw a little fit and go, "How dare you say no to me? Don't do that. You can't do that. You don't do that." Right? I normally get my way by now. If it's a kid, it's like, "How dare you?" And that's what they're doing, but adults are doing it too.
Practice pushing back. What if you're my partner in that previous situation? I say, hey, you know what? I don't really want to continue talking about it. Anything else I need to do to help, but I'm kind of done with this part of the conversation.
You're just shutting me down.
Well, yeah, we can talk about this again later if you want, but I'm not going to keep having the same conversation over and over.
So what do you do at that point if your partner, because that's going to be the third time that your partner's pushing in on you. So what do you do at that point? Do you walk away?
I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be walk away. We talked about walking away a lot. I think finding something else to talk about. Hey, you know what? If you want to come back to it, let me know.
Mhm.
But let's talk about something else. Let's move on to what we want to watch, what we want to eat, where we want to go, what chores you want me to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd change topic. I don't know. What would you do?
I think the "I feel" statement would work, right? To be able
Hmm.
to express your needs clearly. So, I feel annoyed, that I have said my boundary 3 times and you keep pushing against it, or I feel disrespected when you push against the boundary that I'm trying to maintain. Something like that, right? Having an adult's feeling chart might help here, but being able to assert your feelings is a sense of self-ownership. You're not telling the other person what they can or can't do. You're not trying to change anybody, right? You're accepting them, but you are stating your feelings. I feel, I need, I'm requesting, and kind of looking at it that way, I think could help.
I feel you're not being fair.
Okay, I accept that. I accept that you're feeling that it's not fair, but it is my boundary and I am going to respect me.
And is not fair a feeling?
I mean, it can be. I feel a sense of injustice, right?
Yeah, I think of it as more of a thought, right? Because it's like
Okay.
every time somebody says, well, "I feel," I'm listening
Mhm.
for that feeling chart word, right? It's like
Right.
I feel you're a jerk.
Mhm. Yeah, and so I feel that, or I feel like I'm always listening for that in session because you're right. I feel should then be paired with a feeling word. I feel disrespected. I feel disconnected. I feel discouraged. But when what happens a lot is we get to I feel like or I feel that. And as soon as you hear that, I feel like or I feel that, that is providing a thought, not a feeling.
Yeah.
You're just couching a thought as a feeling. So I feel statements are always about self ownership and they're always an emotion word. It's never about I feel that you're a jerk. That's not self ownership, but I feel unheard is an appropriate I feel statement.
All right, so let's do another example. If I do it the old way, then I'll end up feeling trapped or defensive. I might shut down or get angry if because they keep impeding on my boundaries, right? They're not listening. They don't hear me. They don't honor my boundaries, maybe because I haven't structured them well. So what would be a better way to do it than the old way?
The new way would be to use an I statement or an I feel statement. Something like, I really want to listen and understand you, but I'm starting to feel overwhelmed and I can't focus. I need to take a break right now so we can talk about this later.
And what if they continue?
Well, I hear you, but I need to take a break right now. I do not want to fight about this.
So you just go back to the repeating what you were saying earlier, that broken record. If they keep pushing and pushing and pushing, you just say, "All right, I understand. I'm picking up what you're putting down. I get what you're feeling. I know what you're saying. However,
Mhm.
right, I don't have time, or I'm unwilling to keep talking about this."
All right. So, Courtney, let's go ahead and do an example from work, what that might look like. Your boss emails you on Saturday and expects you to start a new project right away. The old way is you respond immediately, working all weekend and burning out.
So if I'm going to follow the model that we just talked about, I would use a strategic pause, right? When I get the email, it pops up, I look at it on my phone. I'm like, you get that feeling in the pit of my stomach. And I say, all right, I'm on my weekend. I'm not available. So it's going to be okay. I have to do all this self-talk, right? Like,
Mhm.
okay, so I'm going to feel terrible because I really want to be valuable. And I know they're reaching out to me. They must be pretty desperate. They're working on the weekend. Maybe that's a good example. But my strategic pause, setting my limits would be I will send back an email saying, appreciate the assignment, and I look forward to seeing what I can do first thing Monday morning.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me to see it, to self-talk, self-soothe, and then be able to assert that boundary that you've made internally. You've talked about it with your boss, but now you actually have to assert it. You have to say, hey, I'm excited about this. This is great. We're saying
Yep.
something positive. I'm excited to start this project. I'll be able to give it my full attention during work hours tomorrow, something like that. And then, hey, is there anything urgent that needs to be handled today? All right, now you're asking a question to make sure that you're doing everything within your power and your job to fulfill your role. You're sandwiching the positive with your boundary. So maybe it's more palatable that way.
How different is it for you when you know somebody has really, really good boundaries? Does it upset you? How does it impact how you interact with them? They got really good boundaries. I know for me, it's like, oh, I can ask them anything and I can say exactly what I want because they're going to have really good boundaries around it. They're not going to feel guilty because I asked and they feel like they have to, because I don't want them to do it if they feel like they have to. So you have a bit of a freedom in that. If you have healthy adult to adult relationship, you have good boundaries in relationships, it frees me up to make a real connection or to be more open and transparent with what I want in the relationship because I know they'll say no if they want to say no.
Absolutely. I feel the same way. When someone has good boundaries, I know that I can text them late at night when I want to say something. And I know that it's fine because they've turned their phone off or they have it out of their bedroom and they'll get to it in the morning. So I don't have to wait, hold it in my head because, well, one of the things that they have good boundaries, I have good boundaries. But the other thing is we've communicated about it. We've talked about it. We put it on the table. We've told our team, hey, this is what it's going to be like for the next couple months. I am not going to be working after 6 o'clock on Mondays and Wednesdays. I'm just not going to look at my phone. And we might call that rigid, but I don't think so. I think if we're communicating really well, a rigid boundary can turn into a healthy boundary. And we actually teach people not only how to treat us, but we teach them and model behavior for them too. So when we're in a healthy way with our boundaries, they can learn to have their boundaries as well and say yes and no as they feel appropriate to do so. And so the more that we learn this, the more that we do boundaries in this way, yeah, we can feel, I don't feel bad at all with some people to text whenever I want to or email whenever I feel like it, because I know that they have their boundaries and I have mine, and we have communicated in a way that's like, yeah, I might send you something at night if I think about it, and don't worry about it until the morning. It's like, yeah, I won't worry about it until the morning. It's like, great. Right? Now we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to worry about offending each other. We don't have to worry about walking on eggshells around each other. It's beautiful. It's an adult to adult relationship. If they choose to look at it in the evening and email me back because, they're doing something they love, like a podcast with a buddy, and they're really like excited about it, maybe they
Ah,
talk at night and then that's okay. But if they don't get back to me, then I'm like, all right, well, we'll look at it tomorrow then. But it's beautiful because I never have to worry emotionally about what's happening, right? It's
yep.
it's on the table, and I love that idea of keeping everything on the table.
Yeah, I notice like when people they haven't clearly expressed their boundaries, sometimes they'll start with, "Sorry, I didn't get to that over the weekend," but it's like, no, you have healthy boundaries. That's perfectly fine. I'm glad you have good boundaries. I
Mm,
would not require anything, or I can't actually require anything else of you. You just have your boundaries, and I'll deal with
mhm.
how I feel about the way you respond. So it's good to make healthy boundaries. We don't want to have too rigid. We don't want to have too much diffuse boundaries. We've learned strategic pause, using the broken record, and especially using the I statements. But bigger than that, I think it's making sure that the boundaries that you're creating are things that you can independently follow through with, that someone else doesn't have to do anything different for you to honor your boundary because you're going to maintain it yourself. So it's not about controlling other people. It's about taking control for ourselves.
What's one boundary we're gonna work on this week, either at home or at work? I would love to see it in the comments below. Like, talk about a boundary that you wanna work on.
If this video helped you at all, be sure to like and subscribe if you want more tools from two therapists, and we will save a seat on the couch for you.
Thanks. Bye.